an LA legend here. Him and his parents, a restaurant, legendary. You guys got to go check it out. Does a lot of things for high schools here in the city, LA County, Southern California. USC legend, man. The pride and home of San Pedro. Petros Papadakis joins the show, man.
Yeah, Petros.
What's poppin'? Oh, good morning.
How you doing, brother? You got us?
Yeah, I got you. You hear me okay?
Yep, we're good, man. Hey, I appreciate you joining us, brother. Hey, I've been to your parents and your family's restaurant quite a few times. I grew up around Phil Trainee, obviously, and you know the Trainees well, obviously, now they're in Long Beach, but grew up, they were also in Pedro, so been around the sports world and love what you do, man. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. My dad retired maybe about a decade and a half ago. Phil Trainee down in Long Beach is still there, and Dustin Trainee, Phil's nephew, has opened two really, really popular. Well, he's kept one going in San Pedro on 9th Street. He's got a really popular restaurant now called Trainee's Dockside down by the fish docks in San Pedro, which is actually converted. They converted the building that was the Ellis Island Registry building for the West Coast immigration, 100 plus years ago. A lot of Chinese and Japanese immigrants, and a lot of Italians and Greeks like us and the Trainees. And that's a very interesting restaurant. It's very popular. So if you ever get back down there, go see Trainee's Dockside. It's
hey, I'm gonna text Phil right now because I go down to Phil's all the time. My boat's in Long Beach, so I go to Pedro all the time and go down to
it's right by 22nd Street. It's right by the
Yeah, I might have to take the boat this weekend. It's supposed to be like gorgeous out. I'm as soon as this is over, Petros, I'm gone to Long Beach, getting on my fucking boat. Hey, so what do you got going right now? I know you still covered high school stuff. I know you still do the stuff. You cover everything SC and everything else. I just had to ask you, what's your thought right now on the landscape of college football, and then how high school football is turning into that with this transfer portal? We got kids going from Pedro to Carson to where are you at with this whole thing, this madness?
Well, I mean, I'm 47, which isn't really that old for a broadcaster, but I started broadcasting when I was 23 in LA, which, was kind of lucky. And around that time, I was the captain of the USC football team. My career ended, and Pete Carroll came to USC, and they went 6-6, and then they became bigger than the Lakers in town, for a moment.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how my career went. I did high school football for years just because I loved it. And I cover it on the radio because of it. But really, I have my radio show in the afternoon with Matt, 4 hours a day. You guys know that's a real job. And then everything's kind of just sort of streamlined to where, I wish I did more in the off season, but I call about, 16 to 20 plus games for Fox every year, in the Big 10, Big 12, Mountain West a lot. And, I'm just happy doing that. I don't call high school football anymore because it's just hard to do both college and high school with the Friday and Saturday back to back. The last time I called high school football was so much fun was the COVID. They played 6 COVID games out here in Southern California in like March, or April.
Right.
And it was so cool because, there was no college football. There was nothing else. I could just go to Norco or wherever and work, But the production on a lot of that stuff has changed as well. Fox Sports West used to put like real TV people on high school games, and kind of develop people from there. And, I remember the first game they aired, I was playing at USC. It was Casey Clausen at Alamany taking on Justin Fargas, who was at Notre Dame, Sherman Oaks. And, it kind of went on from there, real legendary stuff that they put on TV, and they produced the shit out of it, as opposed to, now it's the production suffered a great deal, but it's still great that the kids are featured. But that's what I do now. As far as watching things change, I don't want to give you too long of an answer, but I remember calling football when, they started making peel back blocks and, all these different things illegal, tackling, targeting,
Kickoff return. Yeah.
It was really hard to be like, wow, that's a penalty.
Right.
When for years, we just considered that to be good football and great football, even highlight worthy football. And now it's like, oh my God, these barbarians. So when that changed, that was hard, Jeff Tedford, who's retired, told me a great story. They played USC maybe a couple years back early in the season. And he's standing there on the sideline watching K. Williams warm up. And he said, fuck, this guy's making more money than me. I'm Jeff Tedford, for God's sakes. So that's changed a lot too. I don't think what's happening right now is sustainable, unfortunately, but I'm not really sure what the next step is. The NCAA doesn't have control anymore. The TV companies are in control, but they're fighting each other. It's a wild ride, but college football has always been a hypocritical kind of exercise in a lot of different ways, dating back 100+ years. So we're just in that current form of it right now, I guess.
No doubt.
Do you feel like the game has been, I guess, harmed though because of all this craziness, or do you feel like the product is still at a high level?
Well, when it's Saturday and the bands are playing and we have all the bells and whistles and the uniforms are on, it still feels pretty cool. But at the same, look, college football is a really, really flawed model and always has been, whether, you're talking about the SEC not even being integrated until like 1970, which is an amazing thing. I was born in 1977. My father played in the very first game that featured black players on the field against Alabama at Legion Field, I think in 1970. So, that's crazy. The fact that we have a $1 billion industry, and most of it happened because of a guy named Red Grange, but we have a $1 billion industry inside of our institutions of higher education, and it never made sense, So to say like, well, it's not like it was. Well, what was it in the first place? We were never, really that. I don't think we were ever really, had the moral high ground in the world of college football. I like that players are being paid, but the wrong people are paying them. The dorks that want to hang out with the football players or the guys that have always been paying the players. So we got a lot of problems, but that's not new, I guess.
No doubt. This is Smitty, man. He works at Fox. He was the one that covered the Paul Pierce walking to to campus yesterday.
Really good?
You guys saw the videos.
Nah, fuck that. Don't answer his question.
I met him at Beverly Hills. I wasn't with him the entire walk, but I met him at Beverly Hills, right? And we walked from there all the way down Avenue of the Stars, all the way up into the Pico lot. So I wasn't there early in the day when he got up. So I can't.
You went down the hill with him, but you didn't go up the hill.
Exactly.
But at least it's something to talk about. My God, in LA, everybody's out of the playoffs, so at least they have something.
No shit. Hey, where you at with USC and Lincoln Riley right now? Your alma mater. Pete took it to heights that we haven't seen since the Robinson days, and then it kind of take a decline. Good friends of mine, Sark and Lane, took over. Didn't get what they wanted to do out of it, and now it's kind of hit a rut. And now Lincoln gets hired. All the hype was around him from Oklahoma. NIL hit, you got all these guys, and it seems like, they can't lock down LA guys. Now they're locking down Mater Day. They're locking down some key guys in LA, which if you just lock LA down as Pete did, you win natties. Where you at with SC and what's going on there now?
I think you're right about, Los Angeles. It's obvious, but a lot of people don't notice the obvious anymore. And Lincoln did, when he took the job. But that's not all of it. And I think the other part of it, Lincoln Riley's never going to be able to do because it's just not in his nature. And that is, not only do you have to lock down LA, but you have to get your offensive and defensive line from LA, with very few exceptions, and you have to be able to develop them in a real way, which means, if the running back is your best player, you can't be sitting there every week and, no, this is the week we're going to get to the running back. It's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. The offensive line guys that they should be getting and they should be developing are now going to Oregon. Before that, they were going to Washington, and DeBoer had his moment there. Those two things you have to be able to do to have success at USC. And that's been proven out generationally, right? I mean, for 100 years, the people that have done that have competed for national championships, like you said. Lincoln Riley, deep down, is an air raid coach. And, I don't know what it is, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm trying to think of the last guy that called his own plays that won a title. I mean, I know Sark's gotten close, but there's always something that they just can't, they just can't see the whole picture because they're so upset with being an offensive genius, And I see that in Sark's play calling. I see it in Kiffin. Anybody that calls their own play.
Wow.
I see it, and I think Lincoln Riley has that disease, worse than anybody. Not only that, but, USC has had to hire a GM, the guy from Notre Dame, which is not odd. Everybody's doing that now with what has to be managed. And this guy had to come and say all the right things. Like, we're going to build a fence around LA. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And it's kind of like, you pay a coach $10 million a year and you got to hire this guy to say those things.
Right.
There's something incongruous there. But the buyout is $100 million, and what is the best they're going to do? They're going to be an 8-win team, maybe break some offensive records, but they're not going to compete for titles if they can't be what they're supposed to be on the line of scrimmage, which is what you can do at SC. But, if you don't have the ability, then what's the point?
Great point, because I brought this up with Smitty. I'm like, listen, there's not been a guy that's a head coach, and I had to start relinquishing it as a head coach in JUCO. I was like, man, I got to hire an OC and manage this thing, and I knew it, and it was too late for me. But at the end of the day, I've talked to Sark about this. I've talked to Lane about this. Guys I grew up with, I'm like, look, when you were the play caller at Alabama, guess what you guys did? Won natties, Sark.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Lincoln, guess what happens? Here, me and my boys talk, all the time. This is what I think as doing it both. I'm like, you don't understand. You can have the greatest offense ever. And I had Mike Martz on a couple weeks ago, and he was like, JB, when I became the head coach, I said, fuck being an OC, because I don't understand. I need to score fast for my ego. I want to be the best OC. But I don't understand, the burden that puts on my defense, that I'm out there fucking 80 plays because I'm scoring in 6 seconds on a bomb, and my defense just had a 13-play drive go against them, and now they're back out there. Lincoln don't understand it, and I think it's evident as shit that he don't really realize that part of it. And I think it's time, if you really want to be a head coach and a GM in your own right, or the CEO, you got to relinquish it, man. Mike Martz is 100% right. I've been saying it for years. I said, I wish I would have gave up the offense years ago as a head coach, and I didn't do it. And I wish I would have, but the point is accurate. I think that's 100% it.
I'm not an ex-quarterback or anything. I'm just an old short yardage running back. So sometimes I can be a little bit myopic, these quarterbacks.
Hey, the Greek freak, man. What are you talking about? It's Greek freak.
They teach all about football. They act like they're signing the Magna Carta whenever they get on the air. I remember calling Lincoln Riley, calling offense, Bob Stoops, head coach, or Baker Mayfield, Heisman year, and Oklahoma was at Baylor, Matt Rule. And, Baylor was getting better. They were getting tough, and it was getting to be a real contentious and wild game. And Lincoln Riley did not throw the ball in the fourth quarter. They just hunkered down, ran clock, and ran the ball. And when he got hired at SC, I said, wait, I've seen him do some really good things offensively. I've seen him, when a guy's got a Heisman candidacy, just stop throwing the ball because they wanted to win the game. Now that I've watched Lincoln coach at SC for a few years and on his own at Oklahoma, I know that was Bob Stoops, that Lincoln would have never done that.
No doubt.
Ever. So, you get kind of a skewed view of, I remember first time I met Lincoln, he was at ECU with Ruffin, with a kid out of Thousand Oaks, white boy who threw for like 3,000 yards, and Shane Carden, I think was his name, way out in Greenville, North Carolina. So it's interesting how it changes. I remember Mike Aliotti pulling me aside up in Eugene in Chip Kelly's first or second year. Saying, I'm screwed. I'm going to get fired. I can't play defense around that. And no one gives Aliotti credit, but he figured it out how to platoon guys in. And maybe you don't have 5 great DBs, but you have 8 guys that can kind of get out there. You can put a couple to the boundary and just ham and egg it to get people rest. And do it with the O-line, with the D-line and the linebackers too. And, that was really innovative. Everybody talks about what Chip did and the pace and the space and what Gundy and, what all came from Halmy and all that. But what about learning to play defense around it? The guys that figured that out are pretty special too.
Hey, Sark had to fire Nick Holt after that 77-70 Baylor game against RG3. It's the same reason. Nick told me the same thing. He's like, man, JB, fuck, Sark, we're scoring. I will. And I'm out there fucking 12 play drives and going against no huddle and hang huddle RG3. And I'm like, he was fired on the tarmac. It sucks. He was at SC in those, that game against Texas that they lost to Vince Young, obviously. And I know Nick a long time, but that same thing. I got to be innovative on how I'm subbing D tackles in to get a rest, and it's hard to go against a guy like that. Pace and purpose of that is crazy. So
it's very interesting how we have so many brilliant football coaches in the world, and it's like they coach like it's a video game or fantasy football. They forget that there's a flesh and blood person in the pads that gets tired, and gets discouraged, and all of they don't factor that in. They say, it's so funny, when Kiffin was the coach at SC. They'd lose a game, and he'd, God, we were so close. Didn't you see that? That Dino route, we almost got. And it's like, that's some offensive bullshit. That's not football, to me. So, I think that's kind of the rut USC is stuck in, to be honest.
I call Lincoln out this year when they lost to the 3 M's, Michigan, Maryland, and Minnesota. And I'm like, I watched those games in specific, and they had Michigan beat, and they throw it on 3rd down, which gave Michigan an extra 30 seconds, which they ultimately could run the football on offense themselves when they got the ball back. And that's how they beat SC at the end of the game. They didn't even have to throw. No. And I'm like, if you'd have ran the ball on 3rd down and ran it and punted, you run 30 more seconds, game's over.
Right.
They couldn't throw. I remember calling a state championship once with the Grant High Pacers up against Long Beach Poly.
Yeah, Sacramento Grant. Yep.
Grant didn't have a kicker. They didn't have a punter or a kicker, and they won. There's some things that are beyond explanation. And, when you see stuff like that happen at a football game and no one points to it, everybody points to something, that flashed in front of their eyes.
Hey, it's crazy how Jimmy's and Joe's matter and not X's and O's. Hey, Laura goes to Modern Day and they fucking steamroll everybody, huh?
Yeah, and the guy the year before did too, but they fired him anyway.
Yeah, they didn't win it all. They couldn't be Bosco.
You mentioned Carson and Pedro, and when I was a kid, city football was it. Carson Banning every year was
Carson Banning, Crenshaw.
That's where the Samoans played and the different black dudes. Hawthorne High had Kelvin
Lusinger,
and Curtis Conway, and Lou Zanger, Aaron Williams, guys like that. And that's just gone. It used to be every neighborhood, even like Sark in West Torrance had 4 or 5 guys, maybe 3 or 4, and that's just over. The level of football has changed because everybody is is in the Trinity League or one of these schools, just trying to be on the second string to get noticed at practice.
No
it's very interesting that shifted.
Man, Petros, I can't thank you enough, man. Petros and Money. Make sure you guys go watch Petros and Money or listen to it every day. AM 570, LA Sports. Man, good luck to you and everything you do. Love to talk ball with you again. Maybe I'll see you at a restaurant somewhere soon.
Hey, Coach, anytime, give me a call. I'm happy to do it. It's good to talk real football with people. And I don't know, Smitty, if he went uphill. I mean, I'll admit, I saw him go down. I saw Paul.
Y'all saw the tape. And his name is the truth, Petro. So I don't think he can lie.
Speaking of sports in LA, I saw Paul Pierce at Inglewood High come up to our gym. That was a pretty big moment.
We played. I went to Artesia, Petro. I went to Artesia with the O'Bannons and everybody. So we remember Stace Bozeman at the time at Morningside.
Well, that's what I was going to say that, and no one, you're the only person I've ever met to mention that. When Stace Bozeman came to our gym, it was 3 times bigger deal than Paul Pierce. And he wore his red Chucks, set tripping all the way.
Yep.
And it would be amazing to watch him play football today.
Hey, and people don't realize how good he was. This guy goes and basically gets a free agent shot with the Raiders and goes and plays corner and didn't play any college football.
Crazy.
Yeah, he was one of the best high school, most exciting, electric high school quarterbacks that I ever saw.
Him, Darian Hagan, obviously the legend we had.
He played football at SC. He played basketball. He was just a little too. I don't know what was wrong with him as a basketball player, but my God, in football he was something else. And I wish I would have seen him play quarterback at the next level.
Nah, no doubt.
Morningside High, they closed it. They closed Morningside High.
I know, man. It's crazy. Growing up, all those great LA talented quarterbacks, man. Darian, obviously, Oklahoma took the great. I think Darian and am I losing my mind? What's his name? Quarterback, Oklahoma.
The one that got arrested?
No, from Watts. God damn. Jamel Holloway.
Oh, Holloway, yeah. He got arrested.
Yeah. Banning. I mean, look at the legends that's come out of LA at that time, and then that was before Stace, obviously. But man, Stace was unbelievable. Red Chucks, Smitty, Inglewood's finest. We'll walk into your gym, homie, banging on cats, dunking on you. It was unbelievable. Man, Petros, we got to hook up, man. I appreciate you coming on here. We'll hook up soon, and I'll see you maybe on the water. I'll be on the water all weekend, man. Happy Mother's Day to your mother and everybody else.
Yes, sir.
Hey, God bless you guys. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you.
This conversation. Have a great day.
Take care.